So for this session we need this page. I hope everyone has.
Is that in the corporation? Everyone has one?
Right, here what we have in front of us are 13, or actually I think there are 15 here rows of different concepts. They correspond one to another. They're all in threes. The basic dynamic here is similar to what we discussed before, that the principle, whoever was here for the last session, the principle of Hachna'ah, Havdalah Amtaka, of Chashmalmal, is something that runs through all strata of life. So here we're going to speak now in this session about the business life. But the basic dynamic is very closely related to what we were speaking of before in relation to healing and meditation. As is often customary for Jews that like to begin from the bottom, from the end. So we'll start by looking at the very last triplet of ideas. Because what we're going to try to explain today is that in a well-developed business, there are three principles that must be followed for the total success of the corporation. They have a sequence to them, but they're also, each one can be related to individually by itself. The three actually most basic ideas that we're going to talk about are those that are listed here in the 6th row, which are called involvement and quality and flow. These are the three basic words. In Hebrew, the three words are mu'uravut, involvement, which especially has to do with the involvement of the employer with all of his employees, all the personnel of the corporation. As I said, the line above that, the interaction between the company and its employees. The second word, these are the three key words that we're going to discuss. Involvement. And quality is the word which is the interaction between the company and its markets and the public, the quality of the product. And then the flow, which is generally reflected by the cash flow of the corporation, but also has to do with inner flows that take place within the corporation. That word in Hebrew is zrima, which means flow. The initial letters of these three concepts form an acronym, which is ME'az. Right. The title here of the whole of this whole page is called Kedem Mifalav Mi'az, which is an expression that we find in Mishlei, which literally means that his workings. It's talking about the workings of Hashem, vis-a-vis the Torah, the primordial Torah, that was the blueprint of the creation. That Hashem looked in the Torah, in accordance with the Torah, He created the world. The Torah speaks of itself in the 8th chapter of Mishlei of Proverbs and says, Hashem kanani, Reishit darko, Hashem acquired me at the very beginning of His way, of His process of creation. Kedem mif'alav mi'az, the primal working from before, from the outset of time, the back of time. This is the literal meaning of this phrase, Kedem, that I, the Torah, in relation to the creation of the universe, am the primordial state of being, from the outset of time. The word which means primal or primordial is kedem. It also means to progress. The very same word in Hebrew, kedem means likadem, hitkadmut, progression, development. The word mif'al, workings, is the general word which especially nowadays in modern Hebrew is used for a corporation. A mif'al. Any type of an industry or a factory is called a mif'al. A mif'al is a working. It's not just an individual working, it's a whole industry. Me'az, this word me'az, we are now taking as to hint, to allude at this acronym for these three concepts, mu'uravut, and in order to progress, and as we're reading it, we're darshaning it, this phrase in the following way. As we're reading it, as though it says that the formula necessary to lekadem mif'al, im rotzim lekadem mif'al, if one wants and desires to make his industry progress, then you shall use this formula which is hinted at in the three letters me'az, which reads to know how to properly be involved with every one of the personnel of the company, to base the production and the product upon quality, eichut, and to create a state within the corporation which is a continual state of flow, like the circulatory system of the body that we're going to talk about. So these are the three great concepts. The personal involvement, especially of the employer with all of the employees and what's going on, and this has to be in tune, or it has to be in a balanced manner. The secret of involvement, as we'll see, is to be involved and not to interfere. It's called involvement without interference. That's the expression. Nogea ve'ino nogea, to touch and not to touch. We're going to explain. Many even modern secular theories of business, and one of the most popular, one most well-known, which is usually called the Japanese program, is TQM, Total Quality Management, which rightly emphasizes the orientation of the whole company purely on the quality of the product. The quality is the most important focus of the company. So that definitely is one of our three principles, as well as the middle principle. But the first principle is how to build the structure of the company. That's the first thing that has to be dealt with, is the structure of the organization. The second is the quality of the product. And the third is to create a flow process of give and take, of the investment. Once more, in general, it's a cash flow. But it has to do with the, as we say here, the interaction between the company and its investors. A very great trend in modern business is that the employee himself becomes part of the market and even ultimately becomes part of the investor in the company. Which means that first he's just an employee, he's a worker. He's working for you. And then he becomes part of the market. And then ultimately he becomes a shareholder. He himself, because he believes, because there is the whole company is based upon faith, goodwill and good faith. And the more goodwill and good faith there is in the company, and once more, the greater the quality of the product that the company produces, the employee himself will eventually become a shareholder in the company, an investor in the company. And this will increase the flow. So we have here three principles, and the three principles themselves follow this order. The first, the infrastructure of the company itself must be set well, rectified. Then all of the focus must be placed on the quality of the product. And finally, the company has to enter into in a state of flow. Another idiom that we use for this is grow with the flow. But the more flow, the more grow. That the company grows greater and greater, the greater the flow is. Now these principles that we can definitely see reflected in any viable corporation, dynamic corporation, are actually principles of creation. It's what any activity that a human being, and certainly a Jew, is involved with, and an activity which is so important in many lives, that this dominates to a large extent most of the hours and the thought of his daily life for all of the years of his life. So it cannot be related to just as a mundane thing that a person has to see. He has to make a living, a livelihood, so he has to work. Obviously, there must be something much, much deeper in the fact that an individual, a Jew, spends most of his life working and building. Why? Why is that the case? Why is most of one's life devoted to building some type of a structure? The truth is because a Jew is intended to emulate his creator by himself being a creator. To create a company is to create a world. And just as Hashem created the world with certain basic principles, so a Jew, that's why every Jew should have a company. Every Jew should have his company, his corporation. Because every Jew should have a world that he's creating and that he's responsible for and developing. And it's not a mundane activity whatsoever. It's a very, very holy activity. Creating a world is very close also to building a temple. We know that the tabernacle in the desert reflected all of the secrets of the creation. Because even though the creation in relation to the giving of the Torah is called milin de hediota, it's like secular words, the 10 sayings of creation in relation to the 10 commandments of the Torah being given at Sinai are called like secular words of God in relation to holy words. But nonetheless, these quote-unquote secular words of the 10 sayings of creation are so holy and so deep that this is actually the most secret and the mystery of the Torah, Maaseh Breshit. And the whole creation of the company of the world is Hashem's company that He creates. It's for the sake of making it possible to give the Torah on this context, into this context of God's company, God's corporation, which is the world. And to create a dirah b'tachtonim, that God's presence ultimately through the Torah being given should be able to dwell below. So actually, if we think about this in a total view, an overview of the whole history of creation from the beginning of time, and this the phrase that we're quoting once more, the Torah speaking of itself as being primordial, from the outset of time. If we think of the whole time of all of creation, so first there is a creation of the world, then it says, Vahi erev vayivoker yom hashishi. It was evening and morning, the 6th day. All of the other previous days of creation, it just says yom echad, yom sheni. It doesn't say ha sheni, ha shlishi. On the 6th day, it says the 6th day. It emphasizes that this is a special day. That which it does not mention, it doesn't use the same phrase in relation to the previous days of creation. How do the Chazal interpret that? It means that the whole creation stands on the 6th day to be, which is the 6th day of the month of Sivan, the day that the Torah was given. It means that the whole creation of the world was for the sake, and was only existent for several thousand years, building up to the day that the Torah will be given, that will be the firm establishment of creation. And otherwise, creation would return to to chaos. But the Torah given itself, the giving of the Torah is also for the sake of something. It's for the sake of ultimately, in the time of Mashiach and the future, the world becoming a dwelling place for God, Adira B'Tachtonim. The whole Torah is also a stage in order to make it possible for God's very essence to become manifest throughout reality, throughout creation. So this also, these three high points of the whole history of creation also correspond to these three principles. First, Hashem has to create a structure, has to create a world. That this is the scene, this is where it's going to all take place. It's going to take place here in this world, not in some other world. You know, even in modern physics, there might be, theoretically, an infinite amount of worlds, either potential, actual worlds. But Hashem makes a decision, He creates this particular world, and He says, oh, from the outset of time, is that in this world, this is where it's going to happen. Not in some other world. But it takes several thousands of years that even though this world has already been pinpointed as being the scene of where God's will is going to fulfill itself ultimately, only after several thousand years is the quality product given to the world. Does the corporation produce its top quality product? That top quality product of the corporation, which is the world, is the giving of the Torah at Sinai. With the Taryag Mitzvot, with the Torah itself, the wisdom of the Torah, and the 613 actual physical products, which are the mitzvot of the Torah. But this itself is in order to make the world begin to flow with a divine flow, which will ultimately come to its culmination and consummation only in the future. Once more, the true grow with the flow, which is the growth and development of the world, that because now there is a true quality product in the world, it's going to develop and proceed until it reaches its culmination. That is the coming of Mashiach. And that flow means that everybody is going to invest in the Torah. Even the Goyim are going to invest are going to be shareholders in the Jewish corporation. The more non-Jewish money is invested in Jewish corporations, is the closer that we're coming to the flow of Mashiach. Once more, that the world at large invests in the quality product. And that makes the whole corporation develop infinitely until we reach the ultimate promise, and which is the purpose of creation, that Hashem has a dwelling place below, that His very essence becomes revealed below. So we're just trying to get a sense of these three principles. What we now just said is that these three principles are actually the three basic principles of the history of creation. That there is first a world created, and there is a certain rapport between the Creator and His world. It's called involvement. And the secret of the rapport between the Creator and the world, which is the involvement of Hashem, so to speak, in His creation, is one in which He's here, but He doesn't interfere with our free choice. The principle that we called before, involvement without interference. Or in Hebrew, the concept is Heye mu'ura va'al titarev. Be there, be involved, but don't get in the way. Just like a person, say a husband in the kitchen, that the wife says, you can walk in a little bit and be here, your presence can be felt here, but don't interfere. This is my domain. So in the same way, Hashem creates a world in such a way that the creatures of the world, the human beings in the world, have to have a certain state of independence to operate, a free choice. And nonetheless, Hashem is totally involved. This is the ideal of a of a corporate relationship between the employer and the employees. And we'll talk more about this. And this is principle number 1, which is called mu'uravut. Principle number 2 is that you have to work. Sometimes you have to work a long time. God worked thousands of years to produce a Jewish people. It took 2,000 years to produce a product which is the Jewish people. Avraham Avinu, the first Jew, is a product of 2,000 years of God's work after he created the world, after he built the basic structure of the corporation. And after he created this first product, this first DNA of a Jew, which took him 2,000 years to do, then another 400 years and more went by until the ultimate quality product, which is the Torah, was given to the world. And then we see that it's taking another several thousands of years until the whole thing begins to flow properly, to flow and grow and develop into what will be imminently, Emirza Hashem, the Messianic age, the true utopia that the Torah is directed at. That's called the Zrima. We're just trying to get a sense here that in a corporation, building your corporation as a Jew is emulating God, just like everything that a Jew does is in order to emulate God the Creator. And you have to create the universe, and the basic principle of creation is knowing how to be involved, the interaction between the Creator and His creation. The secret of involvement. That is the number 1 secret that has to be rectified. Number 2 is creating the product, the top quality product. In products, people speak often of competition, that there is a competitive market. The truth is that the product that we, a Jew, or any good corporation has to produce is of such high quality that there's no competition whatsoever in the market. Ein kayotzebo. The goal is to produce, the true goal is to produce a product that has no competition, because there's nothing like it. There's nothing that resembles it. There's nothing that comes close to it. It's so high quality, so special, so unique, that there's no competition whatsoever. Then, once more, to create a flow, or the quality product itself begins to generate world interest to the extent that the whole world wants to invest in your product. Because once more, there's nothing like it in the world. So the whole world wants to invest in you, and the more the world invests in you, the more the corporation grows, until it ultimately encompasses all of the universe. And this is the ideal that we're talking about. Now, as we said, let's go to the bottom line here. The last line. We have here all of these triplets are 3 concepts which relate to these 3 basic archetypical principles of business. The last line are the 3 different words in Hebrew, in the Hebrew language, for money. Most of the lines here are translated, but since these are 3 different synonyms for the same concept, the same word in English, there aren't 3 different words in English for money. So that's why we didn't translate these 3 words. But each one has a different sense to it. And since the object of business is money, so in the word and the concept money itself must be included these 3 basic principles of what one is doing when one is making business, when one is promoting and trying to build a corporation. The first word is mammon, the second is kesef, and the third is damim. Mammon is the etymological source, origin of the word money in English as well. Money in English comes from the Aramaic or Hebrew mammon. On the negative side, when all of the negative phenomena that have to do with money, like ta'avat mammon, the passion for money, which are also all the negative things that have to do with business, the lust for wealth and for possession, for possessiveness and for possessions, all is related to this word mammon. There's a famous statement of the Alter Rabbi, who's Chag HaGeula, the first Rebbe of Chabad, whose holiday is tomorrow night, as was mentioned here, that he once said, the Gemara teaches us that in the time, the beginning of the Second Temple, the sages of that period did away with the evil inclination towards idolatry. As we know, in the first temple, at the time of the first temple, the greatest evil drive and the urge of the soul was to worship idolatry. The greatest pleasure, we can't even fathom or comprehend just what that passion was. But even more than sexual passion was the passion to worship idols. And that was the great source, origin of sin in the period of the first temple. So it says that the sages at the beginning of the Second Temple did a certain mystical process in order to get rid of the passion towards idolatry. But it says at the same time, in order to accomplish that, to rid the Jewish soul and the Jewish experience from the passion of idolatry, they replaced it. They had to give some bone to the dog, so to speak. And the bone that they had to give to the dog is that they replaced it with the passion towards money. Ta'avat mammon. And the Alter Rebbe said, this is a very, very potent, strong statement. He said, I don't know if it was worth it. I'm not sure if it was worth it. If they gained anything out of it. It's a very, very strong statement. That the Gemara says that there was this very, very great effort, an act that was done by the sages at the beginning of the Second Temple to rid our soul from the passion to worship idols. But in place of that came the passion to get rich, to make money. And the Alter Rebbe said, I'm not sure if that was a gain or a loss. In any event, we see how great and how bad can be this passion towards money. Obviously, it's related to idolatry. It is the expression of idolatry in our context, our generations. Because one can make idols out of money, can worship wealth and the power that comes with wealth. So this first principle of mammon has to be, first of all, the evil passion towards mammon has to be put down. That's why all of the concepts that appear here in the first column all have to do with what we were talking about in the last session, the service of submission, of hachna'ah, of chash, of silence. The second, before we explain why this has to do with the involvement part of money, once more, these three words for money themselves are now one reflection of these three basic principles that have to do with business, which we call involvement and quality and flow. The second word, this word we'll come back to in a second, the word mammon. The second word for money is kesef. Kesef is the general word that's used throughout the Torah for money. But literally, kesef means silver, which means it's a precious object. The word kesef, in addition to meaning silver, In other words, zahav is gold. Zahav is more precious than silver, but zahav is not a general name for money. Because money is not called zahav, but money is called kesef. But kesef, silver, is a synonym, or is the basic word in the Torah for money in general. It's a precious object, silver. In addition to that, it has to do with longing. The word lichsof means in Hebrew to long and to strive and to desire. Nichsof nichsafta levet avicha. We just read that Lavan says to Yaakov, I know that you have a desire and a passion to return to your father's house, to Yitzchak Avinu. Nichsof nichsafta levet avicha lemaaseh yadecha tichsof. We find that God has a passion, a longing for the service of the Jewish soul below. The Creator longs for us to serve Him. Lemas, for the workings of His hands to serve Him. Lemaaseh yadecha tichsof. Once more, lichsof is to long for something. Silver means to long for something. So it's very, very clear that as a word, as one of the three synonyms that means money in Hebrew, the word kesef, which is the general word of the Torah, is the quality aspect of money. The fact that money is precious is really special and unique and something that one longs for because of its preciousness. Now the third word, which is in the general word in Chazal for money, is damim. Damim literally means blood. So there's no clear indication that there's something about money which is flow, which now they would call cash flow, than the fact that the same word, damim tarte mashma, the expression of Chazal that the word damim has two implications. One implication is money, and the other implication is blood. So we find that the very same root, which means blood, means money. So there's no clear indication than that there's something about money which is the blood of the society. That money, the cash flow, is the blood of any society. Which means that in a corporation itself, the more damim, the greater the flow, the greater the development and the growth of the corporation. Now this word for money, the word damim, also is very important because it has to do with the holiday which is coming up the week after next, which is Hanukkah. On Hanukkah we know that there is a custom, Minhag Yisrael Torah, one of the most beautiful customs, together with lighting the candles, that the whole family comes together. And the father gives gifts, but not just gifts. The actual custom is to give money. Because now people give all kinds of presents, Hanukkah presents. But the true custom is not to give physical objects. On Hanukkah you're supposed to give your children money. And what is the word used for giving money? Demei Hanukkah. Hanukkah geld in Yiddish. So we see that word for money, which has to do with this holiday, this upcoming holiday of Hanukkah, which once more is creating a certain flow, a circulatory flow of blood within the family. It says, we're also taught, these are deep things in Chasidoth, that this holiday of Hanukkah, just like it's a holiday of lights, of candles and lights, it's a holiday of warmth. There's no greater holiday, that's why it also is in this part of the year, in this time of the year, the coldest time of the year. Because it's a holiday that creates warmth. Creates warmth first and foremostly within the family setting. And part of that creation of warmth is this giving of money. It's a very, very beautiful idiom that the father gives money to the children. This creates a certain flow. And that flow, that blood flow, the word blood comes from red. In Hebrew, blood is red. Also, it's related to man himself, Adam, Dam, Aleph Dam. That flow produces warmth. When a person has going back to the previous discussion that we're talking about health. Health is that the blood flow is maximal, that there is no blockage in the system. And then there is warmth within the body. That's why the word blood, once more is read, it symbolizes warmth. The Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidic movement, used to put his hand over the heart of children, of young children. Whenever he would meet a young child, a Jewish child, put his hand on his heart and say, "So sein a varma yid." He used to bless him. This is called the traditional blessing of the Baal Shem Tov. May you be a warm Jew. And it says that whoever merited to have the Baal Shem Tov's hand placed upon his heart when he was a young child, he was warm his whole life. That was enough to make him a hot Jew, a hot cake, Jewish cake, his whole life. So once when this means that there's something about money itself, that if money is flowing properly, this word damim, then it's just like blood. It's the blood of the whole system, and it's making the whole system alive, and it's making it warm. Once more, life itself, the word chayim, it says that chayim, life, comes from chom, from temperature, from something which is the opposite of life, which is dead, which is not alive, is cold. And something which is alive is warm, has internal warmth to it. So there's something also about this money. It has to do with what we were talking about before tzedakah also. That when you give life, you're giving warmth to another person. And whoever gives warmth, receives warmth. This is part of the flow, the monetary flow. That's why it's so important for a Jewish company to have a very strong stoka foundation to it. Because that's the most important foundation of the cash flow within the company, and the warmth and the life and the growth of the company. All right, so what did we explain? We explained that the two words for money, the word kesef and the word damim, very clearly and obviously have to do with quality and with flow. It's clear that the word kesef, meaning money, is the quality emphasis on money. That money is quality focused. Kesef. And the word damim, meaning money, is that money has this power to it of flow and blood and warmth. Damim tarti mashma. Now let's get back to the first word. The word that said is mammon, the word that also has the negative implications to it. The word mammon, which is, as we said before, the origin, the etymological origin of the English word money, in Hebrew has to do or comes from the concept moneh. The simple reason why this word means money is because it comes from the word to count. Moneh in Hebrew means to count. The word emunah itself, faith, the highest, ultimate level of the soul, faith, emunah, also comes from the same basic two-letter sub-root of man. One of the Kabbalistic explanations of that word itself, emunah, faith, is aleph moneh. That one, the ultimate one, which is the Creator, Hashem Echad, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad, counts everything into creation. The word count, moneh, equals in Gematria me'ayin, from nothing. One of the secrets of counting is when you count, like the basic thing that in the Torah itself we find that is counted is money. A person counts money. He's always counting money. He's always opening his pocket, taking out his money and starting counting, taking the purse out and starting counting the money. When Hashem created the world, that counting process itself, monem mispar lekochavim, is one of the idioms that's used for creation, from nothing. That's probably what Jews would like to do, would be able to count money out of nothing. Just the counting itself, as you open your pocket, you actually have nothing in the pocket. But you still take out, that's what you're trying to do. You're taking out whatever you have in your pocket. You're trying to count out more than was really there in the beginning. That's called ein habracha shvuyela b'davar samui min ayin. You put it in your pocket, you hid it. It says that when you hide something, there is a blessing comes to it, and it becomes more than it was before. So you're always checking to see how much of the money become. So you're counting out maybe a few more bucks out of your pocket, out of your empty pocket. In any event, once more in Kabbalah, the word moneh, to count, equals the word me'ayin, from nothing. And Hashem in himself, in creating the world, is as though counting objects out of nothing. That's creating itself. What is unique even now in modern physics, it's called, and even in mathematics and measure theory, when a person counts, this is one of the ideal examples of involvement without interference, the concept that we were talking about before. To count something means that I'm not actually trying to change it or to interfere in it. I'm just measuring it. I'm just counting it. How many? It's purely quantitative. It's not it's apparently non-qualitative. Only quantitative. I'm just counting it. There's something very deep about kamut. This quality is called eichut. The next concept of our three concepts, the second concept is the quality concept. That's the eichut concept. But the first concept is the quantity concept. So you often think that quantity is not what's important. What's important is quality. But the very truth is, this is a principle that the Rabbi always emphasizes, is that kamus macht eichus. It's an expression in Yiddish that very often quantity makes quality. Because quality is the soul of quantity. Quantity is like the body, and quality is the soul. But don't underestimate the importance of the quantity. Very often quantity influences and even produces quality. That's why the Rebbe in our generation so much emphasized quantity. He says, even though of course quality is what counts in the final analysis, but quantity influences quality. Now, in the quantity mind, this is exactly what modern science, especially modern physics, is all about. Is trying to measure something without interfering. There's a problem, which is called the uncertainty problem. That whenever you measure something, there's a certain amount of interference. But the ideal is to reach a minimal amount of interference in the pure measuring process. Once more, this is a very deep way to understand why this word mammon, which means to count, is like a clue of money at the level of being involved with something, but in minimally interfering with that object that you're involved with. That this is the secret of how to create a structure within the company, which means to appoint people. Now, what else does this word moneh mean? In addition to meaning to count, it also means limanot, which is to appoint. As we have here in one of our 4 lines up from the bottom, we have the name Yitro appears here above Mammon, and Moshe above Kesef, and Yosef above Damim. The involvement principle of the corporation, that is basically called the Shita, the system that Yitro taught Moshe Rabbeinu of how to create what's called nowadays in modern theory, they call it a flat hierarchy. A flat hierarchical system. What does flat hierarchy mean? It means that there's hierarchy, but there's maximal responsibility given to the lowest level of the hierarchy. Not that all of the weight is on the top, but there's a maximum amount of responsibility that's given to the bottom. That this is the ideal teaching. Once more, there's much more deeper things to be said about this. But this is the basic teaching of creating a corporation whose hierarchy is productive. And this is the way that God created the world. Once more, that there is a code, there is a point on the top, a leader, a one at the top of the hierarchical system and development, but there is a maximal amount of independence and responsibility, which is free choice, given to the bottom of the pyramid. So that very concept is reflected in this word mammon. Because once more, mammon comes from monet, account. It also comes from minui, to appoint. That you're appointing people, you're appointing as many personnel and executives beginning from the executive staff of the company and all the way down, giving people maximal responsibility and still remaining in control. The secret of the balance, this is called, as we find in another few lines above, the secret which is called nogea ve'eino nogea. That the boss of the company, the head of the company, is in touch with everything, with everyone, but it's not touching. It's called touching and not touching. Also a very, 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 very famous, important concept in Kabbalah. Nogea ve'eino nogea. And actually, he inspires all of the levels, all the way down, that each one in relation to that level which is below him is also in a state of nogea ve'eino nogea. Always in touch, but not pressuring. It's too much touch means pressure. And too much pressure neutralizes the effectiveness of the strata below. Once more, the whole depth of that concept, this secret of creating the company which is like the creation of the world. When God created the world, it says, "Iu tafis b'chulu amin velet man tafis bei." He grasps all of the worlds, but no world grasps him. This is also called the secret in Kabbalah of the tzimtzum, of the initial contraction. That in order to create reality, Hashem has to appear to have disappeared from this place, from this universe in which, this space in which he is creating the worlds. But actually, especially according to the Hasidic tradition, he is here and everywhere, as we were speaking of before also in the last session. There's no place that he's not here. But he, in a certain sense, from our perspective, he has to appear to have disappeared in order to give us the full power of our independence and our ability to act and to take responsibility. So once more, the concept of tzimtzum, this tzimtzum is the contraction. This other very famous quotation in the Zohar that says that "Iu tafis b'chulu almin velet man tafis bei," that he grasps all, but no one grasps him, and no one recognizes the fact that he's even here grasping us. The concept that's used in Kabbalah, nogea ve'eino nogea, he's touching and not touching. The idiom for touching and not touching is always the eagle hovering over its nest. That it hovers over the nest, but if it would land on the nest, its pressure would be so great that it would destroy the nest. So in order not to destroy the nest, it has to hover. And that hovering process is called nogea ve'eino nogea, mirachef. Kanesher ya'ir kino al gozalav yirachef. Nogea ve'eino nogea is the expression. So once more, as a term for money, this is all reflected in the concept mammon, both due to the fact that mammon comes from the counting process, which is a quantitative creative process, like a modern quantum mechanic process of counting quanta. It's like pure quantum mechanics, Monet. And it also has to do with appointing officials, appointing executives, appointing workers, minui. And at the same time, in order to rectify this at this level of the company, which is this is called the Yitro level of the company, the Jethro level of the company, the basic principle of the soul is the hachna'ah, the submission of the soul. The separation of the soul, which is the identification of the source of the Jewish soul, that's the precious stone, the precious silver of the company. Once more, Hashem's product quality, there are actually two product qualities of God. One is the Jewish people, and the other is the Torah, which is given to the Jewish people. That's Hashem's quality product. But once more, there's no competition on the market whatsoever, because there's Ein Kayotzebo. And the third is to create a state, as we said before, that this is the ultimate state that the whole world, Hashem wants. Yoducha Hashem kol ma'asecha. That all of the peoples of the earth, and all of the universe, all of the datzcham, the domem sumechai, all the levels of life, from the inanimate to vegetable, to animal, to human being, all recognize Hashem through this quality product, which is the Jewish people and the Torah. All right, so what we now explained is we explained the last line of the chart, that the three words in Hebrew for money themselves correspond and reflect these three basic principles of the dynamic corporation. That the dynamic, because it's all money, but it's three different words for money, which are three different concepts of what money represents. It's either mammon, or kesef, or damim. Which once more, the first mammon implies involvement, and once more, to be too involved with money, that makes money turn into idolatry. So an over-involvement with money, that's the idolatry of the money. It says that Yitro himself was the greatest idolater of all idolaters. He was the high priest to all of the different forms of idolatry in the world. Obviously, he worshipped money also, until he converted and became a Jew. But he knew what it meant, what Ta'avat Mammon was. So because he knew of all of that idolatry, all of that worship of money, when he converted, he was able to come up with the true principle of the involvement principle in the company, which means building the hierarchy, creating the world, the flat hierarchy. And of course, all of that has to do with Mammon. And then the Jewish principle, the Jewish element, which is the quality element, is the kesef, the silver. Even Avraham Avinu, we know he bought the Ma'arat HaMachpelah in Hebron for 400 pieces of silver, which in Kabbalah is a very, very deep concept. It's called 400 worlds of longing, which has to do with the world to come that will be inherited by the tzaddikim. 400 shekel kesef over lasocher. And the final is the word that Chazal used for money, which is the blood word, the flow word, damim, which is the money of Hanukkah. The line above that, let's now go up from the bottom. The line directly above that is that the same two-letter root that Mammon comes from has these three basic words to it. One is emunah, faith, and the second is man, the manna that fell to the Jewish people in the desert throughout the 40 years of our sojourn in the desert. And then Mammon itself. So even though as one of the three idioms for money, the word Mammon, we placed it in the first line, but just as a general term for money in relation to the other two words that are related to the same root of faith and manna and money, so those three concepts also follow the same relationship. That the building a system based upon good faith. Well, good faith means that the boss expresses good faith in all of his workers by giving them maximal responsibility, and by being involved but not over-involved, touching and not touching. That's the faith that's built within the company. Obviously, the word faith also could be used in a different way to represent the faith that ultimately the whole world will have faith in the company. The investors will have faith. The good faith of the investors to invest in the company. The shareholders to buy stock in the company. That's also an expression of faith. But the first faith is the building of a faith-based, once more, faith means trustworthy-based corporation amongst all the employees and workers of the corporation. So that's in the beginning, even before the man was identified, before it was even tasted. When they first saw the manna falling in the desert, they said, "Manhu, what is this?" And those two words, "Manhu, what is this?" actually permute those 5 letters to the word emunah. As first, there's some vision of faith. Then comes the taste of the manna. That also is a idiom, an archetypical idiom for a quality product. There's no competition for manna. There's nothing like manna. Whoever merited to taste the manna. There's one and only product. Now modern health foods are trying to duplicate it, but they're not successful for the time being in any event. Whereas the ultimate thing that you would want to produce as a health food or as a food bichlal is to produce the manna, the man. So that man here belongs to the second column, the concept of a quality product. And then the third is the word mammon itself, which is money. Money, now taking it to be a general word for money. That money is flow. But then we saw that the word money itself has its own 3 different synonyms. And let's look up a few lines. We won't have time to do the whole thing, but that's what we explained. We explained the concept of interaction between the company and its employees, and the interaction between the company and its markets, and the interaction between the company and its investors. One thing that we haven't written here is that the interaction between the company and its employees is a model. When you initially build a company, the basic model of interaction is one like a family. The beginning of any company, once more, the good faith which exists in the company between all of the workers of the company is that it's all intended to be a family-like model. That there is a patriarch, the head of the company initially is like the patriarch, like the father. All real companies in the Torah also began within a family context. Like Abraham and Yitzchak and especially Yaakov and his children. They were all an enterprise. It was an economic enterprise. But the economic enterprise was a family. Or what we would call the larger communal family. Because in addition to the children, there were also all kinds of servants and other people that were involved. It was all in one big family context. The head of the company is then the father. And when we said that the father, just like the father eagle, that doesn't land too strongly on the nest in order not to crush and destroy the nest, which is called the involvement without interference. That's just like the father giving maximal responsibility to his children. And the good faith is because it's actually a father and his children. The father trusts the children. There's a common interest. The good faith is because there's faith that we have a common interest. It's not one that's trying to devour and to impair the other. The second concept of quality in the market is a king and domain setting. The company take good pride in your product. At the first level of creating the company itself and the involvement within the company, the basic psychological principle involved is humility and hachna'ah, submission. But the second stage of the company is the pride It's important that the company takes pride in its product. But you can't have pride, you can't have proper pride if you first didn't have humility in the creation of the company itself. Then eventually you create a product that you can have pride in this product. Whereas the ultimate pride is that the product has some divinity, some inherent, innate divinity to it. There's something holy about the product. Just like the Hashem's product, which is the Jewish people, the Torah, there's something intrinsically holy about the product. Of that it says about a king, Vayigbali bo b'darkei Hashem, the king takes pride in his kingdom, and by taking pride in the kingdom, actually he's giving pride to his subjects. But this is also a deep concept, the model of the company versus its markets. Once more, the model of the company in itself is a family model, is a father and son's model. The model of the company vis-a-vis its markets is a kingdom model, a king and subjects model. It's the pride of the king in the product. Once more, about a king we find the concept that his heart was uplifted in the ways of Hashem. Yehoshaphat, the king of one of the kings in the lineage of David HaMelech. It says of him, Vayigbali bo b'darkei Hashem. From him you learn that the king takes pride in his kingdom, and that pride that he takes is actually given to the subjects themselves. The subjects become part of that pride. It's just like when you sell, if we would be able to spend more time talking about business, we'd have to talk about how you market. One of the things that you do when you market your product is you impress the buyer, the potential market, in the pride that he will receive by buying your product. Just like you take pride in the product, it has to be clear that if he buys your watch or your whatever you're selling, then he's going to be proud. He's going to be proud of the product. It means you're selling pride. That's called selling havdalah. Once more, this is the king once more, that the subject is proud in being a subject of this king. He's a part of the king. Eved melech melech. The flow model, once more, we can't explain this in too great length, the ability to attract investors and stockholders is a husband-wife model, a male-female model. Once more, there are three basic models that are all reflected in a company. One is a father-son's model. The second is a king and subject model. And the third is a husband and wife model. The first principle of the involvement of building the company, which is the involvement, that's a father and son's model. The second, which is the interaction with the markets and selling your product, that's being the king of the market. But you have to, because you have the quality product, so you are the king of the market. And the market becomes your subjects. But it's good for them, because once more you're selling them your pride. And they're becoming proud in your pride. That's called a king-subject relationship. But the flow of the company, of the investment, the cash flow, is deep down, it's a husband-wife relationship. And once more, it gives birth to new growth, and new development, and new generations. Pru urvu, umilu et haaretz, be fruitful and multiply. Right, so these are another three basic things. In the body itself, the meditation or the idiom for the first is creating a skeleton and nervous system. Let's look at the line that begins skeleton and nervous system. The creating of the company, the first principle, which is the Jethro principle, is creating the skeleton and also placing within the skeleton the nervous system. Because the nervous system is the touching and not touching. The sense of being there and giving maximal independence and responsibility to each and every employee and personnel within the company. That's called not being over-nervous, not being hyper-tense, not being what is the biggest problem in business? Stress. That's the biggest problem with businessmen. Hyper-pressure, stress. The first principle, that's the reason is that the whole company was not created properly. Once more, the proper creation of a company is that there should be minimal stress within the company, within the structure of the company itself. And that minimal stress means that the nervous system of the company has to be healthy, has to be sound. And that depends upon the skeleton. You have to create a skeleton, and the closest thing, it's even explained in Kabbalah, that the closest things to the bones are the nerves. That on the skeleton there has to be placed a nervous system which is sound and well and healthy. And once more, that is the principle of involvement without interference. Nogea ve'eno nogea. That's the way God created the world. The second is in the body, once more, this is the example. The quality of the product is like the DNA. You can't, once more, it's not non-competitive. If you have a certain DNA, then that's your stamp of quality. And nobody can compare to that. If there is, and there definitely is, this just has to be discovered, the special Jewish DNA, that is the quality mark, that is our mark of quality of the Jewish people, even to the level of the body itself, not just the Jewish soul. We're taught in Kabbalah, only the Kabbalah, this is very important for people to know, that only in Kabbalah is it emphasized that the Jewish body is unique, not just the Jewish soul. So that unique DNA in the body is the quality mark, the mark of quality. Once more, that can't be compared to anything. It's absolutely unique. And the third thing in the body is once more the circulatory system, that the real health and growth and development of the body depends upon the blood. So even though in a certain sense the most important thing is the DNA, that's the mark of excellence, the unique mark of excellence, nonetheless for this DNA to develop within a growing context, that depends upon the blood, the circulatory system. So once more, we said that the three models of relationship are that of father to sons, then that of king to subjects, and finally that of husband to wife. But in the body itself, the three models that have to be expressed in the company are the creation, the proper sound creation of a skeleton with a proper nervous system, and then the DNA, like the gene itself, and finally the circulatory system of the company. Now there's another line here that reads koach onen chaya. We won't now explain it too much. There are also three basic idioms for strength. The koach of the company is its structure, its initial structure. The own, which is the potency of the company, that's like the seed, the product. And with the second column, everything that has to do with the second column is the level of circumcision in the company. Circumcision is the revelation of the quality product. And that's also called just like before we said it's the DNA, it's also the seed of the company. And the seed is the potency of the company. The firstborn of Jacob is Reuven. He's called Oni, my seed, my first seed. And then there is the chayil. Another word for strength is chayil. Chayil is the expanding profit of the company, the success of the company, the universal success an expanse of the company. That's called the chayil of the company. Oseh chayil. Once more, the total success and expanse and becoming a greater and greater army until it ultimately encompasses the whole universe, that's called the chayil. The initial healthy organization, once more, there's the first organizational principle, this word we didn't yet say. The basic knowledge of how to organize the company, that is the koach of the company. And then the seed which the company produces and impregnates the world with this seed that you're giving to the world, that is the own. That's the second word for power. It's called the own of the company. And the third is the universal success and expanse and profit. The word chayil also means financial profit. That the company is profiting even financially more and more and more and growing, and that's like damim milashon dam, and the more it's growing, the warmer it's becoming. And the better it's becoming. And the more pirsumei nisa of Hanukkah it's becoming. Right, so let's now conclude with this, and let's, if there are any, I'll leave some time for questions and answers or comments. Yes?
One question. The schematic makes sense, but since I already mentioned Rabbi Ginzburg that I've read a lot of Rabbi Nachman, what I normally have read in Rabbi Nachman's writing is associated with Bittul. But I guess we're flowing from right to left anyway, so from Bittul in the right-hand column, we're going to Man.
Okay. Man here is the man comes from from faith. That's the spiritual source that it comes from. But just as a product, here we're using it to represent that this is the product of the faith. The faith has now become real, has become actual. It's a product. So the product of the faith, of Jewish faith, is the manna. That's the pshat here. And then it turns into money. You sell it, you make a lot of money out of it. The three stages: first you have good faith, the faith becomes manna, and then it turns into money. Mammon. Yes.
In the investor stage that you mentioned, who's the mother and who's the father?
Who's the male and who's the female, you mean? So if, this is a very, very good question, if the example, the model is that, say, the non-Jewish world is now investing in you, it's like Malkat Shva coming to Shlomo Amed, who is one of the greatest examples of quality that attracted the whole world to invest. One of the great examples in the Torah is King Solomon, that he represents maximal, the highest, ultimate quality of wisdom, and he had a tremendous corporation, a corporation which was all-encompassing of the world, and he says he was one of the kings. Chazal, our sages teach us that he was one of the kings that eventually ruled over the whole world. But that was because the world invested in him. And who was the greatest investor? Because the world became batel to his wisdom. Became no to the quality of his product. What's more, no competition on the market. Nobody had a product like King Solomon. So what does it say in the Tanakh? That the Queen of Sheba came to him to invest and bring all of her wealth and give it to invest in Shalom. What did she want out of him? Chazal say that she wanted to become pregnant from him. So ultimately he did it, and even there was a child born. Eventually Nebuchadnezzar, that destroyed the temple, came out of that pregnancy. In any event, there you see that clearly the non-Jewish world investing in the Jewish excellence. Once more, the Jew was able, this is one of the problems that we have in our generation, the Jewish world to really produce its mark of excellence, its unique mark of excellence. That if we would be successful in producing that top quality product, then the whole world would come to us, would run to invest in us, and then we would be the male, just like Solomon and the Queen of Sheba. We would be the male, and the investor is the female. But if the quality is not so great, and that is the ideal model. If it is not so great, and if, so to speak, you are receiving from the investor, that the basic input is the investor and you're just secondary to the investor, then it's the opposite. And the investor is like the male, and you're being invested in. You're like the female. You're just like, if, for instance, even what is the let's say, in a corporate situation, if the investor inspires the idea of the product, then definitely let's say the investor says, I'm going to put $1 million into you to produce this product that I think you're capable of producing. So in that situation, if the investor sees the potential, your potential, identifies it, and gives you money, inspires you to do it, then it's almost like a male inspiring the female to manifest her potential to give birth, because the male can't become pregnant. The male can only produce the seed, but the female can develop the pregnancy. So once more, if the investor inspires you to become pregnant, and that's a power that only you have, and to produce something, then he's the male and you're the female. But the ultimate ideal is the opposite. Just like in the case of Shlomo, in the case of the Jewish people vis-a-vis the rest of the world. That the female actually is investing in the male and asking the male to impregnate her. And that's what happens. That's what will ultimately happen also in the time of the Mashiach. That Shlomo, just however great he was, and however great the mark of excellence was in his generation, that's yet nothing in relation to what will be in the time of Mashiach. It's a good question. We said that kesef really means desire or longing. But nonetheless, we find that the term ta'ava, in its negative sense, of lust and passion, is used together with mammon, not kesef. There's no idiom ta'avat kesef. The idiom is ta'avat mammon. So it means that the kesef, that's where pride is legitimate. And where there's something that longing and passion is good. There's nothing, not always is longing and passion bad. Longing and passion, which is positive, that's implied in kesef. But passion and lust, which is negative, can be implied in mammon. That's the difference between mammon and kesef. Now, the first thing that you said is also very important. Why are there two mems? So one of the reasons of the two mems in mammon, it says that mammon permutes the letters to form a word mimenu, which is also a very beautiful teaching why this has to do with involvement and not interference. We know that when the spies entered Eretz Israel and then came back and gave a false report, and they said Lashon Hara against Eretz Israel, they said an expression ki chazak hu mimenu, that the inhabitant of the land is stronger than us. But Chazal say that when they said that word, than us, stronger than us, he's strong, chazaku mimeno, they implied chazaku mimeno, the same word mimeno, which means from us, also means from him. In Hebrew, mimeno, from us, means from him. So they said he's stronger than him, they're stronger than God, chas v'shalom. That God himself can't handle and can't take this people, can't transfer this people out of Israel. That's what they said. Lo yachol ha'otzio et keilav is the expression. They can't, that this people have such a strong hold, this foreign people have such a strong hold on our Jewish homeland that even the Creator can't take them out. That was their heresy. So once more it says that the word mimenu, which means from us, also means from him. And one of the things we're taught in Chasidut, that in the future, the tikkun, the rectification of that sin, the sin of the meraglim, of the spies, is that we have to say in the opposite direction, that things which previously were attributed to him, like only he can do it, like only Hashem can bring Mashiach, we have to take such great responsibility. This is called B'yadei mi mafteach ha'geula, in whose hands is the key to the redemption. That it's very simple to say that it's all up to God. Only God can bring the redemption. Mimeno. It's all from him. But we have to say, in order to really bring Mashiach, we have to redirect that word mimeno. That it's not just up to him, it's mimeno, it's from us. It depends on us. So once more, this concept of mimeno, in reference to money, that's exactly, again, a very beautiful example of involvement without interference. That it's all in his hands and all in our hands simultaneously. So there's something about money that it has to do with mamon, mimenu. It's all up to him. Just when you say wealth in general, Mammon has to do with wealth in general. Bal Mammon. So wealth in general, who is it up to become wealthy? So obviously, Birkat Hashem Ita Ashir, it's up to God. It's one of the gifts of God. If a person will be wealthy or not. But at the same time, Harotzela Ashir, such and such, a different formula that even Chazal give for becoming wealthy. Means that in a certain extent, even though it's up to him, he also makes it up to us. It's just like the very, very simple thing that God helps the person who helps himself. It's once more, always the things in the first column have some common denominator, even with non-Jewish thought, as we said before many times. So the very simple thing that God helps a person who helps himself, that's definitely more manifest. We said before that it's certainly very, very significant that for most people, most of their life is spent in business. I mean, that's a very, very important thing if that's the case. So it's clear that there's something that God desired, that there's a great tikkun, a rectification in this. So the very simplest thing is that in this avenue, in this enterprise, more than anything else, it's clear that a person learns that God helps me if I help myself. There's not very, very simple, very simple, basic thing. So that idea of this interplay between him and me, like it's all him, but it's also all me. That's also like this involvement, that he's involved but not interfering. That's expressed in the secret of this word mammon, which implies mimeno, this duality of is it him or is it me? Is it us? So once more, something the negative part of that is saying that it's too strong for us, and thinking that it's even too strong for him. That was the sin of the spies. But the secret of the redemption comes that not just saying that it's mimeno from him, dependent upon him, it's also dependent upon us. That's one of the teachings it says about mammon being mimeno. Yes.
One about sin and peaceful redemption, certain sins have so much greater potency for the generation. To clarify a little bit about the primordial sin, why that was so powerful, and what the people really have to do for that redemption.
The primordial. Good. Right. Again, the simple idea is that companies are temporal. And companies rise and fall. It's like kingdoms. Once more, creating a company is like creating a world, which is like creating a kingdom. That we said that, first of all, the relation between the company between its markets, which is the outside world, is a kingdom-based model. The king of the market. Kingdoms rise and fall. It's even we read in the end of this last week's Torah reading, Vayimloch Vayamot, that he reigned and he died. The seven kings of Edom, that each one reigned for a short period of time, then collapsed. Hitmotetut. The connection, the fact that our mif'al, our enterprise is kedem mifal. Kedem mifalav miaz. It's coming from a primordial place. There's a basic principle in Kabbalah which reads kol kadmon nitzchi. Whatever is primordial is eternal. Kol kadmon nitzchi. Those two words, kadmon nitzchi, equal Mashiach, it says in the Kabbalah. The Mashiach is the primordial, which is thereby the eternal, based upon the inference that kol kadmon nitzchi, lo kol nitzchi kadmon, doesn't work in the opposite direction. Not everything which is eternal is necessarily primordial, because something can be eternal based upon God's will, that He wills it to continue to exist, but it wasn't always there. So it says that kol kadmon nitzchi, whatever was always there will always be there. But not whatever will always be there was always there. It's a basic principle. And that concept of kadmon nitzchi is Mashiach. And it says that in order for our company effort and enterprise to produce a product which will be long-lasting, it's another important thing about products, and about not just the product, but the whole company. That the company will be a long-lasting company, not just an up-and-down company. Not just something that breaks on the stock market and people lose chas v'sholom millions of dollars. As unfortunately we see things like this happening every day, that it goes up and then it can collapse altogether and then people lose lots and lots of money, Hashem Yirachim. So in order that shouldn't happen, it has to be connected to a primordial source. Once more, the inspiration of the company has to be coming from kedem, from before. I mean, it's not just what's a modern in, or the mode of the time. It has to be based on something which is primordial, and to the extent that the company inspiration is trying even to produce something that has roots. Once more, it's rooted. The efforts of the company are rooted in some primordial truth. The company effort itself will become long-lasting and eternal, will not collapse. That's the basic idea of kol kadmon nitzchi. That's why it has to be kedem mifalav me'az. Yeah. Okay. The female can be part of the whole thing. But I said the female can be part of the whole thing. She certainly can be part of the family effort. The more that the company is a family enterprise, so the female is there. The female can be inspiring the whole thing. The female tells her husband who to invest in. It all comes from hakol min ha'isha. The expression of Chazal, everything comes from the woman. It's not. But definitely it says that the female afterwards processes. The man brings. This is a very famous thing in Chazal, which clearly identifies the female being more at even a higher level than the efforts of the man, because the man just brings the raw materials from the outside world, and the inner processing, and say making the wheat and the flour into food. That's the responsibility of the woman. I mean, that she makes a further beirur, a further clarification, which is a second. The second is a higher clarification than the first clarification process that the male does. But again, the female inspiration is behind everything. Hakol min ha'isha. 1 second, yes.
Very often you see a company with superior quality product, you see the correct infrastructure in place, and you see the correct financial and managerial acumen in place. Yet the company is not successful.
tune Z for that company to succeed?
Again, you said, what about the product?
You have you have a good product.
Yeah.
You have the right infrastructure.
Yes.
You have the right managerial, expertise with it. The company doesn't succeed because something outside the company.
It means that the flow, there's something wrong with the flow. The outside of the company, investing in the company, that's the flow of the company. That's the third principle. And it's very hard for me to picture that it's really 100% working properly. The first two stages and the third stage doesn't work. Then it would just be some type of a decree from heaven that, and whenever anything should be operating properly, and it doesn't work, then it's some type of a decree from above that it's not working. But yesh lahaniach, and we can in general imply that if the first two steps, sometimes you lack the proper people, the personnel even to do the further stages. Maybe you really don't have somebody to promote investment or to promote flow in the company. You don't have that proper person in the company. Because it all goes back to the beginnings. If the organization is proper, it means that you have people that are talented and good at every one of the levels, that are good in production of the product and also good in promoting investment. So maybe you don't have that person. If you don't have that person, it means that the very first stage, the infrastructure was also lacking. Because the infrastructure has to initially have all of the people that you're going to need in the future for the development of the company. Okay, there's another one. As being what? Yes, yes. Again, meditation which is non-thought based is, first of all, the word meditation is not the proper word. It's just, that's what they use in English it's not the proper word. If you look in the dictionary, it's not the meaning of the word meditation, because meditation in English does definitely involve thoughts. But in any event, that's the word that's used. What it would do for a Jewish soul, it would put it it's not balanced. For a Jewish meditation uses thought in order to incorporate and integrate levels of experience which are above thought. Not that thought is the ultimate apex of experience. Thought is a gesture. It's like a bridge. If thought is not used, then whatever lights may be or may not be, they will not be able to be integrated into the inner consciousness of the soul. And therefore much of it, a great proportion of it, will remain also illusionary and imaginary. Will just give rise to a lot of false imaginations that it's impossible to clarify, because there's no inner process that's able to clarify them. And even if there are true lights, they will not be able to be integrated into the situation, into the inner consciousness of the soul. Yeah.
Rob, in your model of the body here,
Yeah.
I was wondering if you comment on, we've heard, I guess, the cash flow is the bloodline of the corporation.
Yeah.
What would be, briefly, if you could, the respiratory system as well as the digestive system?
You just hit on Keter and Malchus. Yeah. And for this, we'd have to understand with the chart that we had before for the meditation on the body. The respiratory system is the crown of the body, and the digestive system is the Malchus of the body. It's the highest and the lowest. It's Keter Malchuti or Keter, and Keter Al Yoni or Keter Malchut. The supreme Keter is the Keter of Malchut. So we'd have to explain the emunah and ta'anug and ratzon, the will, the bringing down the faith into pleasure and will, that has to do with the respiratory system. And the shiflut, actually the digestive system in the body, has to do with its innate lowliness, but also its ability to digest. The simple meaning in Hasidut also that to digest is be able to take the sparks from below and to integrate them into the system. For instance, in a company, the digestive system is how to digest the, say, raw materials in the first of all, on the production line. How to maximize the line of production by taking raw materials and producing whatever you're producing. It's also, even in the investment, also digestive is be able how to digest money properly. Digestion means to take some raw material from below and to take out its sparks and to utilize the sparks. That's the digest. That's the malchut is taking life force from below. The respiratory system is actually taking down life force from above. These two systems are the two extremes of the body because in the body they are the only two systems that have direct contact with the outside world. Once more, in all of the systems of the body, like the circulatory system, the nervous system, are systems that are working within the body. Immune system and endocrine system, all of the systems are within the body itself. There are two systems that are in interplay with the raw material from the outside world. One is the respiratory system, which is taking in air, and the other is the digestive system, which is taking in food. So taking in air is drawing down from above, that's keter, and taking in food is elevating from below. That's the basic idea of these two systems of the body. So the same thing you can understand in relation to a company.
It's a Jewish business, I understand, is to work according to halacha. Now, if you are dealing with non-Jew and they have their own system, and you have to make use of their system, and you don't know about halachic implication in terms of if there is a possibility of working with that system. Should you go and work with that system?
If there obviously you have to know all of the halachic sides of the. That's clear. That's part of the beginning. That's part of a healthy structure, organization. A healthy structure obviously has to be based first and foremost upon halachic considerations. Okay, that's it. Maybe one more question, yes. One, I didn't catch you. One. Yeah. But good random things, good things. Hashem gives more and more good in direct proportion to how much true, sincere thanksgiving there is for what has been given up until now. That is the gauge. There is one gauge of good things happening all the time to a person. If a person is truly and instantaneously, automatically full of sincere thanksgiving to Hashem, Modeh ani lefanecha, then he becomes a vessel to receive more. That's the. May I have more questions after the next one, the next time?